one of the major problems that we face in this country is fatherlessness. Yeah, fathers not being around, fathers just being completely absent. So you've got young boys and young girls that are raising themselves. And the reality is that young boys need positive role models. And so fatherlessness in I'm just going to say in this country, the United States, is the statistics are awful. And then you've got fathers that aren't present. Why are they not present? Well, they're on alcohol, they're on drugs,
they're on this.
They're on
this.
They're on their mobile phones. I didn't even get to that one, DV. I mean, we could go on and on all day. I mean, there's a number of things that are grabbing at our attention.
Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. If you enjoy our content, please like or subscribe.
Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you want to build a pergola. Maybe you want to redo the kitchen. Check out K&H Construction. Mr. Chris Helms, he's a local guy out of Waxahachie. He'll take care of you and let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is author, speaker, and coach Mike Van Pelt. How you doing, sir?
Man, I am awesome. Also from Waxahachie was Hayden Fry, former coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Just want to point that out.
Oh, yeah.
So all my Iowa fans down there in Dallas.
That you got a Waxahachie, a former Waxahachie.
I grew up in Iowa, so there you go. That's it. That's the Hayden Fry.
And it's probably very beautiful up there. I haven't had a chance to travel that.
Well, if you consider beautiful corn, soybeans, hogs, and cattle, then yeah, it's beautiful.
It's really flat though, right?
It's pretty flat.
Pretty flat. Yeah. No, I mean, Texas has its moments. We got a little bit of hills. They call mountains here. They're more like hills. So, but I wanted to have you on because you're doing this marvelous work on addressing Christian manhood. You have taken upon yourself because believe it or not, folks, men, we lose sight of ourselves, just like women do, and God bless them. They lose sight of themselves because maybe they're all the way into motherhood, maybe they're all this, and they don't get a chance to look at themselves. Men do it when it comes to work. It's something that I understand. When it comes to work, life, am I a provider, et cetera, you kind of get lost in that. And sometimes those things make you less successful, less joyful. And I mean, I wanted to have Mike on to kind of talk about that subject. But first, let me get an intro on you, sir.
Yeah. So, what's interesting, my name, Mike Van Pelt. Also the initials MVP. Now, not everybody's blessed with that, so I always like to have a lot of fun with that and point that out. By the way, I have two brothers, Matt and Mark. So just so you know, my parents, they chose biblical names. It had nothing to do with the MVP. And I'm kind of pissed about that, honestly, DV, because if they would have only if they could have registered that as a trademark. Well, you and I probably wouldn't be talking. I'd probably be on the beach or the golf course right now. But anyway.
That's right, because my last name is LeBron, and everybody runs with that one. But I'm like the Timu LeBron,
There you go. So yeah, I live just outside of Atlanta, Georgia these days. Spent most of my life in the South. Spent a little time in Texas. I was just telling you, spent 9 years down in Houston. By the way, I was at the very first Houston Texans game, which was against the Dallas Cowboys. And for those of you that don't remember, Houston won that game. Just want to say. I'm just saying. But, so my wife and I, we've spent a lot of time in the South, and we have two lovely college age kids. And boy, we're very dangerously close to becoming empty nesters after 29 years of marriage. But yeah, I've kind of taken up the mantle for men and masculine. I like to call myself a Christian men's life coach, but I really view myself more as a mentor from the standpoint of just being able to guide men. And I don't know that there are any shortcuts in life, DV. I really wish there were. But, you know, what I like to say that I help men do is find those shortcuts from their head. So you get out of your head and into your heart. And I think that that's where masculinity begins. And when you get into your heart, you can begin to heal from all those past traumas and things that are interfering and getting in the way of the possibility of you being your best in life. And, you know, when you get intimate and right with God, your world can open up. And that's really where my story starts.
How did your personal journey lead you to want to kind of address this subject?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was been a Christian all my life. So, I mean, going to church on Sundays wasn't in question. However, it wasn't until my adult life where things really begin to change. Like a lot of guys, when you get introduced, people will ask your name. And then they ask, and you already brought this up, what do you do? And that becomes an identifier. So, you know, if you're an attorney or a doctor, everybody starts going, he must have a big house and a car. They don't always say these things. We just kind of think them in our mind, and they become our identifiers. And even us as guys, you know, sometimes if we're not in a place where we want to be, even we will identify ourselves wrongly. And so I went through a period of time where I was a little lost. I didn't have a career that I liked. And in fact, my wife at one point said, Mike, stay home with the kids. I got this. You know, I got a great job. I'm in a senior management role. I've got this. And so I went to work on me at that point. I realized that I hadn't completed my college degree, went back, got my college degree. And then I thought, you know, I do want to work, right? Because as men, we're kind of raised to be the breadwinners and get out and get a job and go to work. And that was always me. And I went out and tried to find a job, and I wasn't having very much success, but I had been doing a lot of volunteer work. And I thought, well, God, you must have me headed down that trail. But what do these executive directors in some of these larger nonprofits have that I don't have? And I thought, well, you've been going to school, get your master's degree. And so I went back, got my master's degree, and now I've really pigeonholed myself. They don't know what to do with me. You got great volunteer experience. You have great sales experience, but you've been a stay-at-home dad and you've been doing, you know, we don't know what to do with you. And I thought, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to do my own thing. Started doing some business consulting and met a man that became a very good friend, Paul Bailey. And we started, we were going to start our own networking group, and it turned into a men's small group. And little did I know that my world was about to change. We really got into going off, well, I like to say going off in the deep end of the pool and learning about each other and talking about each other and really digging into what the Bible had to say about that. And, we met some other guys. We were really hungry, and we were trying to figure out, how can we have a better small group? How can we be better as men? And I went to my first men's retreat a little over 6.5 years ago. And it was on a Saturday morning where the retreat director got up and said, I'm going to play 3 worship songs this morning, and I want you to hear these songs as God is singing them to you. And he played a song by Josh Groban called You Are Loved. It's a beautiful song. I encourage people to listen to it. It's not necessarily a worship song, but in that moment, I got a zinger from God that said, I want an intimate relationship with you. You're my beloved son. And I just remember like looking around the room, you know, tears welling up going, holy cow, did anybody else get one of these? And I just remember thinking to myself, if this happened to me and it happened to somebody else, like, where do these guys go? Where do I go after this? Like, where do they go? Who do they talk to? Well, like, what's going on here? And, you know, it really took me months to unpack what had happened there. And by the time this was in 2019, we got towards the tail end of the year, and I was really starting to put some plans together. But of course, as we all know, in late February of 2019, COVID had much bigger plans than Mike did.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And, we kind of went into shutdown mode there for a little bit. And it was a very confusing time for me during that period. But then in June of that year, my wife, her job was eliminated, of all things, after 15 years. She was in a hospitality company and they couldn't put butts in seats. And so they eliminated her position. And we're stuck. We're now in the most awkward position we've ever been in our adult life. Our son is getting ready to be a senior in high school. Our daughter's a sophomore, and my wife is unemployed, and Mike's trying to figure out his world. What in the heck are we going to do? And so we really started looking around and trying to figure it out. And I was looking at franchises. I was looking at business opportunities. My wife's trying to figure it out. And we knew really that it was probably going to cause us to relocate. And so that's how we ended up here just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. My wife took a job. And the beautiful part about that was it was an opportunity to pivot. I got into podcasting because I was encouraged to do that. And so we started the True Man podcast, the whole idea to help men be better dads, better fathers, and just better all around men. And it started with Paul and I doing it. And then I went to an interview style, and I've since kind of been on a solo streak over the last year because I felt like I had a lot to talk about. But, it led to the podcast led to a wide range of things like books. I was involved in some collaborative books. And then earlier this year, I put out my own book, True Man, True Ways, a roadmap of discovery to the masculine heart, which is a bit about the story I told you. And it's about how the steps that I took to recover my masculine heart. And it's led to some strategic relationships. Everything that has happened in my life over the last 6.5 years is a result of that moment, that pivotal moment when God came to me and said, I want an intimate relationship with you. And I discovered what that was because I didn't know. I did not have that relationship with Christ. And that is a relationship that continues to evolve and grow to this day. But the thing that really happened as a result of that is, this podcast is not long enough for me to tell all the stories. God just kept bringing people into my life. He kept bringing, tools into my life to figure out how to expand what I was doing in this True Man. I guess we could call it ministry and getting out and talking about how men could be better men and different business opportunities as a result. And it's just been one thing after another. And I just feel extremely blessed. And the fun part is this podcast that we're on today is when I started talking on this microphone that I'm using right now, I didn't know that I could do it. In fact, the very first podcast Paul and I did, truthfully, we had to have a couple of, liquid adult beverages in order to hit the record button, and I realized that God had given me a gift, and I started to find my voice in this, and it met me where I was, which was in a curious place to get out here and talk with people and to learn from people. And as it evolved, really even talk about Christ and what Christ means to me and what Christ could possibly mean to you if you submit to him, rather than gripping that wheel so tight like we often do, trying to control our lives.
But we normally end up with Jonah moments. And I mean, I've had those Jonah moments. It's like, no, I told you where I want you to go. No. And then he puts you where he wants you. And you're like, why didn't I come here sooner? And he's just kind of looking at you like, but it's faith. It's, for me, that moment that you had, I came on another way. I came begging to him in the worst possible, lowest tunnel that I could be in, begging him to save my life, take this away from me, save my marriage, please God, and I will never turn away from you again. And he hasn't, and I haven't. He saved my marriage. He saved everything. He's never turned from me. My life is great. And this podcast has been such a beautiful thing. You know, I've gotten to meet so many good people from all over the place just on this, and all these stories of people and redemption, and people that like you that are doing better for humanity in one way, shape, or form. And that goes into purpose. For me, God told me your purpose is to serve and your purpose is to be kind. You will be kind, because it's the complete opposite of who I was. He wanted, like, if I could tell you, like, he pretty much told me in the most close to audible way without sounding schizophrenic, you will be kind. And I said, okay. So I've dedicated myself to trying to be kind. I'm not always perfect at it, but trying to be kind, trying to be kind. And so purpose went in there. Tell me, like, you got in this group, God talked to you, you started this podcast. How did you figure out the way you were going to start addressing, and what was the biggest problem that you saw saying, okay, I have to do this. This is the problem that I see.
When I started, I don't know that I was sure. I think I was still trying to figure it all out, mm-hmm. And, probably easier for me to start at a place of like, what do I see now as I've matured a little bit and grown into this? I think more than anything, the men that I talk to, they're searching for more. They want more of something. They're not sure what the more is, and they don't know where to go get it. Right. And I think what's interesting about that, if I could take that a step further, I'd say the trust level of a lot of people with the church, with our government, with, the media, people have a low trust level with all of that. And I hate to say that about the church, but, statistically speaking, men have been involved in the church much less than women. And here's the challenge with that, I believe. And when I say this, I want everybody to understand I'm not throwing the church under the bus. Okay. The church has its place. The church has its importance. And I think it's critically important for families to be in church. But the church has not raised up masculine men. It has not helped to raise up masculine men. It has not put men in winning positions. A lot of men have grown up either fatherless or didn't have a father present, or their father was present and just didn't teach them how to be a man, because they weren't taught how to be a man. And so, you just kind of wander around trying to figure it out. And the church has played to some degree a role in that. And what I would say is this: I've done men's groups inside a church. I've done it outside of church. And I've had the most success outside the church because nobody pestered me, whether it was a Bible study or a men's group. And you can have either or. And by the way, when you're meeting in a group, right, God is present. The Holy Spirit is present. And you may be talking about godly things, but a Bible may not be present.
Right.
A lot of the churches that, I started stuff in, there was this yin and yang on, well, I don't want to read this book on masculinity, but we should be doing a Bible study. And, it's fine. There is a million ways to do this. And I think the most important thing I want to say about this is this: don't isolate yourself. This is the worst thing that men do.
Absolutely.
We go through, everybody, men and women, we experience a lot of trauma in our lives. And for whatever reason, the devil knows that trauma, if he can come get you when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and you get to experience porn for the first time, or maybe some kind of abuse, If he can take you down that road, it's going to catch up to you when you're an adult. If and I've seen this over and over again, if you don't do something about it. And, it can be very costly in relationships. And, we isolate ourselves, and it's the worst thing that we can do as men. And where there's power is in these groups, whether they're inside a church or outside the groups, getting together with other men and having more than inch deep conversations. Have conversations about being a father. Have conversations about being a husband, where, you may be weak in other areas. You may find a man who's strong, who can help you. And here's the most interesting thing. When you go to these groups, you're going to experience guys that are going to turn to you and look at you and go, what? You too? I thought I was the only one.
Right.
Your story is unique to you, but really your story's not unique. Somebody else has experienced it, probably. They may not have experienced it in the same way, but they've experienced it. And I think that it's important to get in these groups, these men's groups, where you can experience other men and you can talk about other men and you can talk about these things that maybe you grew up thinking they were taboo. We don't talk about money in this house, or whatever the case is, right? There's a million different sayings on there, but I think it's important that men come together. And we were created for this. We were created for a relationship, by the way. I mean, it's biblical in nature. It's why Eve was created. God saw Adam in the garden, and, God didn't want Adam lonely. And so he creates Eve, and then the story progresses from there.
The biggest problem, though, is that men, we don't want to seek help. There's something innate about us, about seeking help, whether we are masculine men or not so masculine men. There's something, I don't know what it is, where seeking help seems like we won't ask directions in a store. It's just, how do you get past that? How do you get past that?
I love it. Thank you. This was the biggest setup, and you didn't even know you were doing it. That's what I really love. First of all, we need to understand that Adam, when he was in the garden, God tells him the rules. Don't go eat of the fruit over there. Eve comes along. What does Adam do? Well, he doesn't tell Eve the rules, and Adam knows the rules. But, what happens? Eve eats the fruit, and, the next thing you know, they're hiding in the garden. Why are they hiding? Because they know they've done something wrong. So then you get into this whole world of passivity. Passivity is really built into our DNA. Circle back to this idea of help that you were talking about, DV. It's really interesting. In a collaborative book that I did a couple of years ago, I wrote a chapter on entitled, believe it or not, The Power of Asking for Help. And it's really part of my story as I was a youngster growing up and how I stopped asking for help. And so this is something that I've been really working hard on right now, because like you're saying, we don't ask for help. And one of the reasons that we don't is there's this ingrained thing, I don't know, call it the passivity from Adam again, where if we ask for help, it's seen as a sign of weakness. And actually, it's the opposite. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. And it's important to go ask for help when we need it. And the asking for directions thing is a classic example of that. Now, of course, today, we don't have maps in our car, so we don't need to run in a gas station and ask for help because we all have GPS on our cars.
Right.
But nonetheless, asking for help is a really big deal. And as men, what we need to do is that little thing called pride, just put it aside because it gets in your way, and learn to ask for help. This is one of the most life-saving things that you will ever do, I believe, is to learn how to ask for help And it is, again, a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
Tell me, how do you, because, and this is a perfect lead in into something else. One of the things that slap us up, ruins marriages, pride, and excess of pride. Because I think that maybe, and this is my personal belief, I think there's a healthy level of pride and there's a very unhealthy level of pride. And maybe if you could speak to that.
Well, I've been married to my wife now for 29 years. Now, I'd love to tell you it's always been sunshine and rainbows, but anybody that's been married that long knows that that's not true.
I'm 28.
Yeah. And so, you go through the ups and downs, but I think the most important thing that I've learned in 29 years of marriage is that, guys, this is going to be a terrible shock to some of you. You're not always right. And she's not always right. But the most important thing that you can do is just listen, and hear each other's side of a story. And the other thing that I would say that I've learned to do, and I early on in my life, I was terrible at this, right? Anger is a big default that a lot of us men have. I mean, we shoot right to anger faster than a Porsche on an open freeway, right?
Right.
Pause. I don't care if it's 10 seconds. I don't care if it's 20, 30, a minute. If you can learn to pause before you say something, before you blow your stack, it might save your marriage. And that's not an extreme thing to say. If you can learn to pause, if you can learn how to breathe, slow down, tap the brake. I don't care what you want to call it. Have a code word. I think it's probably one of the most important things that couples can do, because things get elevated so quickly, especially young in our marriages. And the other thing that happens too is that, we start having children, and that takes a strain on our relationships. And sometimes it's okay to go in the other room and have a minute. And I think you tell your spouse, hey, I need a minute. I want to talk about this, but I need a minute. And brother, I will just tell you, that's years of experience coming at you. You know this, right? Because I didn't used to do that. And, it'll save your job at work. It'll save your relationship with your children. And it could potentially save your marriage if you learn how to hit the pause button.
Thinking I had to settle it right now caused some serious epic arguments. I mean, there was this, and a lot of drama that didn't need to be caused for not just, working on it when my temper can be regulated to have a discussion about something. But you said something that we commonly get told by women, that we don't listen or hear them. And that's a very important thing to a lot of women. And I imagine that, I haven't listened to all your work, but I imagine that you do talk about that. That has to be part of our Christian manhood, to listen to our wives. Not in a sense of you do this and I'm gonna, you tell me what to do and I'm gonna do it. It's more, I'm talking about just in general, listening to her.
Well, as men, we're fixers. We like to fix everything. And that may include, our marriages or our relationships with kids and, our kids. I think one of the more important things you can do, and this will help with not only, it'll help with all your relationships, right? You need to get out of your head and into your heart. And that's what happened to me, right? When I started getting intimate with God and I started building that relationship with God and I started building that relationship with myself, it's really hard to fully love somebody else if you don't like yourself first. And sometimes that means you got junk going on, or in the Rocky movies, got a little something in the basement is what Rocky referred to it when he was rubbing on his stomach. He's got a little garbage down deep inside there that he's got to deal with. And, you know, a lot of us men do have some kind of garbage that we need to deal with. And so we need to take stock and look in the mirror and go, what's going on with me? Because too many of us are quick to point at our spouse or somebody else and say, it's on them. Is it? Is it? Sometimes it is. I get that. But it's important to go look in the mirror and begin working on yourself and get in touch with your heart and get in touch, you know, with your Heavenly Father. When you get to a deeper place with God and you understand that there's intimacy involved in that there's a relationship, that you're running to him and he's running to you, which I'm sure you can totally relate to, DV. You know, you're running to each other and you're having conversations, you know, with Christ. When you get right with yourself, when you get right with God, you're going to find that your relationship with your spouse can just explode, because women are very heart-centered. Guys, right, as I said, we're in our head. And so you want to connect with her heart. You know, she wants to be told she's beautiful. She wants you to woo her. And I'm the first one to admit that. I mean, that's kind of like outside of my bailiwick there, right? I'm like, these are skills that I had to learn, you know, go hug my wife. I'm not a huggy, feely, touchy guy, you know, and at this point in my marriage, I love to hug my wife. They want to be hugged. They want to be caressed. They want to be told that they're beautiful and that you love them. And these, you know, maybe this sounds like corny things to some of you, but I guarantee you, if you start doing these things, you're going to see massive improvement in your marriage, because your wife desires them and craves them. And if you're being honest with yourself, I bet you crave it too.
And because you've put God at the center of this, what is the biggest thing destroying Christian men in their homes? And what does God say is a perfect man? Now, I made that perfect word may not be, I understand you can, but that's kind of, for lack of a better word, what does God say is a good man? Let's say good man.
Well, I view Jesus as the model. So where does this whole idea of true man come from in the first place that I use for my brand for everything? Well, true man is Jesus Christ walk on earth as a true man. So what does scripture tell us? I mean, ultimately, he's the ultimate role model to follow, the fruit of the Spirit that, you know, he possesses, and everything that we can learn from. If we follow Jesus's lead and his walk on earth, his acts of kindness, his acts of love, his acts of caring, of listening. Jesus knew the answers to the questions, but he still asked, I'm going to get the number wrong here, 300 and some times questions. I believe the New Testament has that Jesus asked. Well, he didn't need to ask those questions. Why did he do that? He did that to build relationship. And so Jesus is the role model that we need to follow. So that means you're going to have to dust off your Bible. You're going to have to dust off your Bible.
Find your Bible.
And you're going to have to do a little reading. And, you know, that in and of itself is going to help you immensely. What is destroying men and marriages? There are a wide range of things. But one of the biggest problems that we face in our culture, because it's so accessible, is pornography.
I've heard this, brother. Like, there's been so many in now, you know, just a caveat. I never got into it. I was one of those guys. They were playing. My teenage friends threw it on, and it was like, oh yeah, great. And then I didn't see any cost to it, and just never. Even in the Navy, in my worst of my thing, it's just not something I got into. So I didn't know that it was a thing. But it is, like, if you go to church and you talk to men, it's a thing. It's a big thing. Talk to me about that.
Pornography is a thing. I think the things that we haven't addressed that have caused trauma in our younger years is a thing. So, there've been, and at this point in my life, I've talked to enough men. I don't want to say I'm shocked, but it does always surprise me the number of men that I come across that were abused as a child. Yeah. And that abuse traumatizes them right up into their adult life. And so, that can cause some challenges. Honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges men face, and it's one of the things that in my big vision of what I want True Man to become, this big media education company where we have, really help men, teach them how to be great dads and all this, is that, one of the major problems that we face in this country is fatherlessness. Yeah, fathers not being around, fathers just being completely absent. So you've got young boys and young girls that are raising themselves. And, the reality is that, young boys need positive role models. And, so fatherlessness in I'm just going to say in this country, the United States, is the statistics are awful, and then you've got fathers that aren't present. Why are they not present? Well, they're on alcohol. They're on drugs. They're on their mobile phones. I didn't even get to that one, DV. I mean, we could go on and on all day. I mean, there's a number of things that are grabbing at our attention. And so our attention span is not very good these days. I mean, when I was growing up, we watched football to watch football. Now people watch football because they're gambling. Their fantasy football is huge in this country. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, when you talk about how big fantasy football and these fantasy sports are, do you think for a minute that the casinos or the gambling companies that are running these companies give a damn about your family? No. Do they give a damn that you're sitting in front of 3 televisions on Sunday, not caring about who really wins the game, but how you get the most points from your fantasy football player? I mean, these companies couldn't give a damn about your family. They only care about making money. When I grew up on Sundays, we went to grandma's house and listened to grandma tell stories, and we played games and we hung out. Now, I mean, that's just times have changed, and I get that. But I think we have to be very aware and cognizant of men that we are the leaders of our families. We are commanded to be the leaders of our families. Now, women, I'm not degrading your role when I say that. Okay. I want you to know that. I mean, I'm an equal opportunist in this house. My wife has been extremely successful, high level senior management in companies. Okay. I understand what a woman goes through to try to achieve in the workplace and have it all in the world. I get it. I've seen it. So I don't want you to think I'm coming across as some chest beating, hypochondriac here. Mm-hmm. I'm not at all. I totally get the challenges that women face in the workplace and being a high level mom. Dads, it's time for us to step up and be present for our children. And here's the thing. If you are not present for your children, somebody else is, or something else is.
Absolutely.
And if you want that something else, i.e. a mobile phone or social media leading your children, fine, just keep doing what you're doing. And I do mean to be that blunt because it's that big of a problem.
Yeah. You won't like what comes out of it. You won't, because it won't resemble anything that has to do with God. When that becomes the parent, any electronics become the parents. You're going to find out real quickly that you can lose your children. And usually by the time you figure it out, your kid doesn't even like you. They're nihilistic. They don't see any hope in the world. They don't see God. And it all happened through YouTube.
It's fascinating to me that we live in certainly in my lifetime, I mean, as a 55-year-old man, right? Technology continues to evolve, and I've certainly seen it evolve in my lifetime for sure. Mm-hmm. But we've never been more connected as a globe, right? If I wanted to, the minute I get off this podcast, I could be on a call with somebody in Australia in a second, in an instant. We've never been more connected. Ironically enough, the statistics tell us we've never been more lonely. Mm-hmm. And so what is this all about? Well, it's about relationship. And it's about learning to have a relationship with the people that are the closest to us. And having a relationship with your phone or your computer is not going to cut the mustard. And, you know, here's another shocking little tidbit from MVP. Those friends on your Facebook, half of them aren't really your friends.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know half the people on my social media. So, I mean, you know, Facebook is what it is. Sometimes it's interesting. Most of the time it's just people blowing off steam and trying to, you know, get people under people's skin. But, you know, they're not, these things are not real relationships. Real relationships are with God, and they're with your family, they're with your friends. And if you're not taking the time with building those relationships, they will fail to exist.
Yeah.
It's just hard truth.
My pastor, no, it's right. My pastor was talking about something similar like this. We had a little men's conference thing, and it was awesome to see so many men at the church. And we were all sitting there, and the one thing he was talking about was, he goes, the number one thing that I hear from men that are in trouble in their marriage or they're getting divorced is, I had no idea. I had no idea that this, that, or the other, but they had no idea. They look completely blindsided, but they missed it. They missed something. And I'm sure doing this and dealing with men and talking to them and coaching them, you run into this.
I think divorce is absolutely brutal. I have yet to meet a man that went, wow, that was a great divorce to go through. I mean, you know, that famous words never heard, right? I mean, it doesn't happen. When children are involved, they're absolutely brutal. And typically the casualty of the divorce is not the couple, although that's a casualty. It's the children. And the children don't know what to do with this. You know, they just see mom and dad coming apart at the seams. And so, you know, we wander aimlessly. And a lot of people will say, you know, well, I didn't see this coming. Or, you know, he had an affair, or she had an affair. And I didn't think they would ever do such a thing. I mean, you know, here's the thing. Spiritual warfare is a real thing. The devil knows that if he gets inside your head and, you know, gets that little voice going, that he can take not only you out, but if he takes you out, he can take the family out. And if he takes the family out, the devil is really, really happy. And so the first thing that guys need to understand about all this is spiritual warfare is real, and the devil is fighting for every inch of real estate he can get in your head and heart. And so you have to know what you're fighting for. And every morning you get out of bed, the devil is fighting for a place, and he wants you to walk down the street and, you know, look at that woman's body. He wants you to even say something to her. He wants you to go, because he knows he can take out the family. So we got to know that first. Temptation is a real thing, and women do this too, right? But I never believe that anybody is completely blindsided by what's going on. You know, you're not completely blindsided. Deep down in your soul, you know.
Well,
you just don't want to admit to it.
Well, the pastor was talking about that the man will say, you know, I was happy. I thought everything was good. And the wife will say, I was lonelier than I'd ever been, and I got tired of it.
Yeah. So what this comes down to, DV, is that relationship again. Are you having, at a church I was at, we hired a consultant and he had this little phrase and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I've kind of incorporated it into everything. He used to talk about the church. What the one thing that we needed to do in the church was have caring conversations. And I got to say, I love that little phrase. And I think caring conversations are important, whether, you're at church or whether it's with your family or whether it's at work. And so if you're having caring conversations with your spouse, you're going to know exactly what's going on. I talk about coaching a lot because I'm a coach. Anybody can become a coach. How do I know this? Coaching really is about asking deep-seated questions, asking good questions and listening. So a good marriage has good coaching involved in it, right? Both coach and mentoring, mentor, mentee, coachee. Are you asking deep questions of your wife? Honey, is there anything I can do to be better for our marriage? Is there anything that I can do to help you today? Honey, how did your day go? And then just sit and listen and really, have those caring conversations. If you're not having more than inch deep conversations with your spouse, how would you know if something's wrong? Yeah. If you don't ask your spouse, am I pleasing you? Is there something I need to work on? Right? Dangerous question.
Yes.
But, why would we go to work and have our boss do a review of us and not do the same thing at home?
Woo. Yeah. No, and you got to be you got to be able to accept what they're saying and hear that. And that I've not been perfect at that. I'm getting better. I'm actually getting a lot better at shutting the hell up and just letting her get that across. Even if and when you've been together, as long as we have with our wives, sometimes you scrape a little harder. That somebody with a couple years would run. You scrape each other a little harder, when you do, and you just take that and you take it in because you needed to hear that and she needed to express it. But that can be a very hard thing for a man to do.
Oh, incredibly hard. And here's why. And this is kind of another part of my talk that I'm incorporating on the power of asking for help. Why don't we do these things? Well, we have what I like to refer to as these obstacles of fear. And I think the top four are: we fear rejection, we fear the uncertainty of what may come of it. Vulnerability is a major part of this. You're going to have to be vulnerable. And this idea of being unworthy. Well, oh my gosh, what if I hear an answer I don't like? Well, then, the worthiness thing goes right down the tubes. And so most of our lives, the things that we don't do, or the things that we don't say, or the regrets that we have, or the things we wish we'd have done, are a result of buying into fear. And if we buy into fear, of course, we're not going to ask our wives, honey, is there anything I can do for you? Is there something that you feel like I could do that would help our marriage thrive? We fear what that answer may be. But what if that answer, is the secret that takes your marriage to a whole other level?
Yes. That could be the conduit that sends you into a whole nother stratosphere in your marriage, because marriage goes in chapters. You grow and you change and and so that might be what would catapult you onto another level. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the first one to admit. Now, I do a lot of self-development. I have another company that I'm a part of. We're big believers in self-development. and nutrition, but I'm at 55 years of age, I am only getting started. And I cannot wait for tomorrow to see what happens tomorrow. How can I better myself tomorrow for Saturday so I'm the best? You know, I'm always striving for more. I want to better my best. If I'm bettering my best, I can help other people better their best. I can help impact the world. If I give more, learn how to give more today, I can give more tomorrow. And if I give more tomorrow, what could I get in return? And I don't do it because of the return. I just know that the more I give, the more I receive.
Yes.
You know, and so, and I love that strategy. I don't necessarily do things and go, well, I'm doing this because the outcome is X, Y, and Z. I mean, you know, obviously we have jobs and we go to work so we can earn an income. So that is the outcome. But, you know, when it comes to relationships, what if we just did it because we loved? We're able to give that love and then receive it in return.
That would be nice.
I don't know. It's
with no strings attached, with no
strings
expectations.
attached.
Those are the best times of giving, when there's no expectations behind it. That's when God rewards the most. Man, I could speak to you all night, and we could definitely keep going, but I'm running out of time. I did want to ask you to go ahead and just tell my viewers where they can find you. And I promise, folks, I'm going to try to get him back on again. And we're going to talk about something completely. We're going to cover the gambit. But if you could tell my viewers, you know, maybe some guys want to get a hold of you. Where can they get a hold of you, and what's the best way to reach you?
So, you know, we always trying to improve the website. So truemanlifecoaching.com is my website. You go to the website, you can find my podcasts on there. You can find my books on there. I try to stay up on my blogs, but I'm not very good at that. You know, but you know, my calendar's on there. I always encourage people. I'm always willing to talk to people. And, you know, I have you can get on my calendar and book a call, and that there's a free, you know, a kind of courtesy call, if you will. And if you want to, you know, have some coaching, that's something that we can talk about. I still do a little bit of one-on-one coaching, moving towards more of a group model. I love group models because I think it's important for men to engage together. Just a number of things that I'm working on. But I know that there are a lot of things that guys may have questions on that I brought up here today. And hey, I'm always willing to have that initial call. And you can go to my website. My calendar's on there. It's all over the website. We've got it all over. We wanted to make it convenient for people. So, and go out and listen to the podcast. You know, I have a great time discussing this week, this type of information. Usually every week, but, and the other thing that we're going to do real soon, we're working on this for early 2026, that talk of the power of asking for help. You know, if you have a men's group, a Christian organization, and you or a business and you want to learn about the benefits of asking for help, man, let me know. And in 2026, I'm going to be available to go out and do some workshops on that and talk with people more about it. So thanks for having me on, DV. I sure appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
No, it's been an awesome. I hope to have you back on. Can you stick around after the show?